Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Superboy Legacy on YouTube, and today we have just another podcast episode for you, and we're going to be talking about a few cool little things that have happened. I don't know how long this one will be, just talk until we get bored, I suppose. But first thing we want to talk about, and I probably should say, I don't even know if we need to introduce ourselves really at the beginning of the shows anymore, because our names are always at the bottom of the screen anyway.
Yep.
But obviously I'm here with Chris, and Chris told me about something that I didn't know. Now, it is very rare that Superboy will ever get a mention. You know, any kind of magazine or news article, or even, you know, online articles on websites and stuff. Superboy is so often forgotten. But there's a magazine that came out this week that actually has a 2-page thing on Superboy and an interview with Gerard Christopher and another one with Stacey Hyduke.
Yep.
Going to show it off. Back issue. What's the number of that issue again?
Back issue number 142. It's the tagline at the top is Super Issue starring Superboy in the Bronze Age. They're using a cover done by the great Mike Grell, who most Superboy fans know. He was the big artist in the 70s of the Legion. At the bottom,
just awesome artwork, and
yep.
You know, just a nice cover for the magazine. You know, I've always had a soft spot for crypto. You know, at some point, crypto is going to have to come into season 5. We just don't know when yet.
Yep. And the thing about this cover
nice.
is it actually is reusing artwork that he had done for a little comic book insert that came with the model kits in the 70s.
Oh, that's cool. So it's not even necessarily artwork that even some of his fans might have necessarily seen before, if it's just for that. That's pretty cool.
And I believe that when they reissued the model kit a few years back, they reprinted the little comic book. It's kind of a comic book and the instruction sheets. And I'm sad to say that I never got either.
Oh, well. You're in the same boat as me, except, you know, I'm that way with so many things like this.
Yep.
Now you feel my pain.
Yeah. At the bottom, it says interviews with TV Superboy stars Gerard Christopher and Stacey Hyduke. And then they also have stuff on Super Mario Brothers, Super Fan, Super Goof, Super Richie, Super Dagwood, and more.
And obviously, since Superboy almost never gets any love in magazines and media like this anymore, I have gone ahead and ordered a copy for myself, just because, you know, it's not like another magazine article is going to come out next week and I'm suddenly going to be spending out a fortune. It's nice. And, you know, again, Back Issue magazine number 142, if you want to get a copy of this for yourself, just so you've got it on your shelf. I know there is a copy of it on eBay at the moment, but you can probably find it through various websites. I think Forbidden Planet sells it. Yep. I know the UK version does, because that's what I've ordered mine through. But yeah, when stuff like this shows off some Superboy, like has a mention of Superboy, I think they deserve our business. So we're both going to have a copy of that, and we invite all of you to do the same, because
and I think the company that puts it out is a company called Tomorrows. They actually have a website that you could go to and you could probably order it. But, you know, I mean, first off, I would always recommend, you know, go to your local comic book shop. You know, I mean, if you're here on Long Island, there's a couple of really good ones that you could probably get it from. I think Amok Time in Smithtown, you could probably get it from them.
Love the name of the shop.
Yep. No. Fourth World is in Smithtown. Amok Time is a toy store over in Levittown.
Still a great name, you know. Yep. Great name, named after a great episode of Star Trek. So,
yep. I got mine from Long Island Comics. That's my local comic book shop. Frank, the owner, he's a little bit curmudgeonly, but I think you guys, if you live on Long Island and, you know, you haven't visited him, he's over in West Babylon. The store looks a little messy, but
I like comic shops though that look messy. When you walk in the comic shop, if there's like stacks of comics and boxes and like all of that stuff, it makes you feel like Indiana Jones, and you're
Yeah,
about to find some artifacts that is going to be a great piece for your collection. It belongs in a museum. It's
yeah,
I like a messy comic shop. I would take a messy comic shop that is like family owned kind of thing, private business kind of thing, not like a corporate thing where it's sort of shiny and new and it looks all modern.
yeah,
I take the messy one any day.
yeah.
There's more character in it, in
There's
my
also
opinion.
a place in Lindenhurst called Bailey's Comics. They're also really good. I don't know if he would have it, but it's definitely worth trying. So the date that we're doing this video is April 2nd. So I don't know if by the time this goes up, you guys will have.
Yeah, we're a little bit. Obviously, our upload schedule is a little bit backed up because we record a little bit in advance just so I've got time to edit the stuff in case something comes up. I like to be ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
But,
and of course next Sunday we're not recording because it's Easter. So
yeah, so it's probably going to be a little while before this episode goes up. I hope you'll still be able to get a copy of it. I imagine you'll probably be able to get one on eBay at least at that point.
yeah, I would.
Some of these magazine companies even let you order like back issues and stuff.
Yeah, definitely go to Tomorrows. That's TWOMORROWS.com, and then see if they have it. Remember, it's issue number 142. You should be able to get it. If you can't, then
yeah, maybe we could touch on a little bit. Like, obviously, it's talking about Superboy in, was it Silver or Bronze Age? Did you say
it's
it was
Bronze Age. So this
Bronze
is
Age?
the period of the Bronze Age that leads up to the Legion taking over his book and then kicking him out of it. And then it's the brief period when he went back into Adventure Comics, and then he was in Superman Family for a brief period.
So
and then
obviously mentioning Superboy as the show, it's great that it gets a mention. I'm guessing it's like you say. Is it 2 pages? Did you say?
Well, it's 2 articles. Let's see. I've got to get up to that. It's like close to the middle of the magazine here. All right, so starts on page 53. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a lot of pictures. 6. So there's 6-page article with Gerard, and then we've got the article with Stacy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5-page article with the interview with Stacy. There is something here that will, I can kind of show it to you. It's the original artwork of issue number 20, written by Gilbert before it was colored.
That is cool. That is very cool. Yeah, so obviously, if you were sort of umming and ahhing and you were thinking like, oh, maybe if it's just a page mentioning Superboy, it might not be worth you buying. That sounds really good to me. Like, you said it was what, 6 pages for Gerard and 5 for Stacey or something.
Yeah,
roughly.
Well,
like,
I think
there's photos and stuff, but I'm really excited for my one to arrive. So that's the only reason we're not going to go through the articles bit by bit on the podcast is because, well, I don't want to be spoiled.
Right.
Not right now. Maybe we can do an actual podcast where we just delve into that article and break it down and talk about some stuff, because an interview with Gerard or Stacey, they may mention stuff that we've never heard before, and it's always nice to learn something new about this show. So,
I still wish that they had done an interview with John as well.
Yeah. I'm always sad when John's left off because he was the first, and he was very good in the role. He wasn't fired because he sucked like Scott Wells.
Yeah.
I always think John deserves some credit.
He deserves a little bit more love than he gets.
Absolutely. We've made it. I've made it no secret. I do prefer Gerard's take, especially in season 3 and 4. I know I've said it again and again, but John was really fucking good. So just because I may prefer Gerard, that's that's not to say that he was in it, that John was in any way bad. I always like to make that clear, because sometimes when I say like I prefer Gerard, people think I just really don't like John Newton.
No.
And it's just not true. Like even season 1, as we've gotten into our commentaries and doing this podcast, we're finding that even some of the episodes of season 1 that we remember not being very good actually have moments of greatness, like with Troubled Waters. Troubled Waters had some stuff that we really liked in it, more than we expected. Black Flamingo, we were dreading doing Black Flamingo as a commentary, and we actually had fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a bad episode.
It's still a bad episode, but there are parts of it that are actually pretty damn good. Like, some really cool ideas in there as well.
Yeah.
And, it's a very cringeworthy episode, but it's amazing how often we're finding great things in bad episodes.
Yeah, and I mean, even, we've talked about it before. That villain is definitely worth bringing back for season 5.
Yeah. I mean, what a cool idea for a plan, He's, brainwashing all the people in this club to become assassins, to take out, like, political figures or whatever. Like, it's a really interesting idea for a storyline. Part of me wishes it was a 2-parter, because I think maybe all the problems that there are in Black Flamingo in that episode could probably be fixed by just expanding on the story a little bit and giving everything more time to breathe.
Yeah,
you could even have a scene of Clark getting that motorcycle and putting on the fake beard and all of this and setting his plan in motion, because I don't know if anybody was actually fooled by it. So you may as well have just let the audience in on it from the start. But
yeah,
I'm getting into something else we are going to be doing at some point in the future. We're going to be doing Superboy rewrites, where we just take bad episodes and give our opinions on what we maybe would have done to fix them.
Yeah, give them a little bit of a polish.
Yeah, just for fun, And, it's not because we're not saying that we could do a better job. We just have the benefit of hindsight. That's all it is. And I think that would be a really fun
I think we're going to probably be doing that a lot more on season 1 than anything else.
Season 1 and some of season 2. Season 2 was an improvement in many ways, but there are still some shockingly bad episodes in that season. I know you like Yellow Perry, but I don't like that episode. I don't like. I also don't like. What was the name of the episode where it was Elias Salkind's wife or fiance was in it? I forget her name. She was in 2 different episodes, but it was the one where she has the snake.
The woman
Tiger
called
Eye.
Tiger Eye.
It was a woman called Tiger Eye. It's the season finale, and it's one of my least favorite episodes of the show.
And it's not because of Sky Aubrey, because
no,
she does a great job.
It's not exactly. It should have been. It's one of those ones where the story jumps about so much and things just kind of happen, and nothing about the story felt organic in that. It's just kind of shit happening and seeing what the characters do, which is fine, but the shit happening isn't entertaining enough to warrant it, in my opinion. But again, it's another one where if it was a 2-parter, perhaps they could have actually tied those story elements together in a way that felt better. But yeah. So yeah, that'll be something we talk about. I know I've gotten off topic a little bit, but I think it'll be fun. Just giving you a little tease of what we're planning. But this article thing sounds really great. The fact that it's 11 pages. 5 and 6, and it's just like, I'm excited to read.
There's like a 20-page in-depth article on Superboy in the Bronze Age, which is really good.
I mean, that interests me as well. I like the Bronze Age Superboy. Like, the new adventures of Superboy comics are really fun.
They don't actually talk about the new adventures.
Do they not? Why not?
No, because I think they did an article on the new adventures previous to this.
That makes sense. But it's a shame. I mean, I like the other the the Superboy comics that came earlier than that. I've got a whole bunch of them. But yeah, New Adventures of Superboy, that run, I don't know. I think that's my favorite Superboy run. I have a real soft spot for it, and I know you do too because we've talked about it at length.
Oh yeah. And I mean the fact that one of the greatest stories from that series was then adapted into a comic for into the tie-in comic for the show by the original writer Paul Kupperberg was great.
Yeah, it's always nice when they bring back the original writer for stuff like this. I mean, I remember when I heard that the animated film Batman Under the Red Hood, when I found out that they actually brought the writer of Death in the Family to write that animated movie. And because it had been like 10, 15 years at that point, he had so much, he'd been thinking about it for years. He's like, I didn't like that. I would maybe tighten that up. Maybe I'd drop that. And it was just like suddenly he came in and he wrote, which in my opinion is the best Batman animated movie outside of like Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah, the best solo Batman animated film. I mean, when you have the Batman Superman films, Superman Batman, those
Public Enemies and Apocalypse. That one.
Yeah, those are great.
Those are great, and best Batman solo animated movie in that DC animated universe that was going for so long. I just think it's great because the original writer came back, so he understood what the original story was trying to do, and he had the benefit of hindsight, and he fixed some of the things that he wasn't happy with. And it's a really polished, well thought out movie, and I think it just works. I'm not the biggest fan of Bender voicing the Joker. I'm a fan of Futurama, but I hear the Joker in that movie. All I'm hearing is "bite my shiny metal ass." It's that's all I can picture the entire time because he still sounds like Bender, slightly deeper voice, but it's still very clearly him. And I'm a huge fan of that actor as a voice actor. Like he was great. I thought Adventure Time was a really charming show as well. But I don't know. I couldn't take him.
John DiMaggio.
Yeah, John DiMaggio, absolute legend. But I'm sorry, not my favorite Joker. Even if he is in my favorite animated Batman movie.
Although he does bring across the whole creepy aspect when he
definitely had that. Yeah, I just didn't feel like he was the clown prince of crime. And I like my Joker to have a little bit more humor. It's why I like Heath Ledger's Joker a lot. But I wish he'd had a little bit more humor. Like there are things I definitely would have liked to change. I still think Batman Begins is the best of the Nolan Batman films. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I've always thought that Batman Begins is just a much stronger Batman movie.
Yeah.
And Gotham City looks like Gotham City in that film, whereas in the other two, it just looks like Chicago or wherever the hell they chose to film. It just looks like generic American city after that point.
Yeah,
Gotham should have character to it, Batman Begins, it had that. But really getting off topic now. But it's still DC Comics related, so hopefully you don't mind.
And this what I'm about to show you guys is two things that I found. We were doing. Eileen and I have been doing a little bit of spring cleaning because we have the gas company is coming through in the next couple of weeks, and they have to come into the basement to turn the pilot on, turn it off, turn it back on, make sure that the lines are working right. So we were doing some cleaning yesterday, and I found a pile of posters. And in the pile, which I didn't think I still had, was my original promotional Superboy the comic book poster. And if you look at the corners here, you can still see the tape and the holes where I had it up on my wall. And it's still in surprisingly great shape, other than those couple little things.
Yeah, a couple of little problems on the corners, a couple of little rips.
One piece of tape here on the seam.
Yeah. Considering this poster came out in 1989, it's lasted a bloody long time. That's really good. And it's even more amazing when you show us what you've got here as well.
This is the replacement one that I got from Long Island Comics. Frank was actually moving his location, and he needed to pack up stuff, and he says, I got a thing of posters here. If you want any of them, take them. And he actually had this one along with a lot of other ones that that are not Superman or Boy related. But the only thing wrong with it is it just
tiny
like
little
the
tear
one,
there.
tiny tear at the seam right here.
Yeah, it's where obviously it's been folded, and yeah.
Yep.
Still, for 1989, those are in remarkable condition. Even the one you say is in the worst condition is, I would still happily put that on my wall.
Yeah.
And we've been talking before recording this, and you're going to try and get a photo frame or something so you can hang it where that the dog calendar behind you is. I think it's a dog.
Yeah, it's a Frenchie.
A bit pixelated on my screen, but it was either a dog or a dog-shaped thing. But
well, either way, it's a dog-shaped thing.
Yeah, but so that would be cool. You'll have something in the background.
Yep.
And at the moment, I'm going to have to get something else for my wall that I'm going to put here instead of this Batman one. I'll move that somewhere else, and I'll get like a big metal frame, and I'll design something for that.
I'm not. I don't know if you'll be able to find one of these posters.
I'm going to keep looking. Like I found one. Like I remember showing you. Like I think it was like 6 months ago or something. I found
that was the Spanish one, right?
Yeah, I found it on eBay, and it was perfect, but it was all in Spanish, which is amazing because I didn't even know it had a Spanish release.
Yeah.
Like the show, all the comics tie-ins, I always, for some reason, I always assumed that only, the headline comics would be translated.
Yeah.
And Superboy, the tie-in comic, was never a headline comic for DC. It was, the tie-in for a TV show, So I never expected it to actually make it.
Sort of a headline character, so
he's a headline character, yeah. So maybe that's why it happened. But it wasn't in Spanish because it was like a Spanish language poster from like comic sales in Mexico or something. Like it was Spanish being sold from Spain. So kind of amazing that it even had a release over there. But yeah, the poster was ridiculously expensive, and I just couldn't warrant it, to be honest. Hopefully, at some point, one will go on eBay that's in battered condition. I don't even care what language it's in. It can be, it can be in Japanese or German for all I care. In fact, a Japanese copy of that poster would probably look pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, I doubt that there's many of these left because these posters are almost 40 years old.
Yeah, they're as old as I am. They came out the year I was born. So it's, I'm 33 and why am I 34 now? As I get older, I'm losing track. Like it's like, because you don't get asked about your age as you get older. So you don't think about it.
Yeah, memory problems, Tom. That's the first sign of old age.
Plus I don't want to be getting old, so I try not to think about it. But it's happened a few times where I've told someone my age, and my like it happened once. So I was asked my age when I was doing something, and my mother was with me, and she said, "No, you're not." I literally said, "Oh, I'm 30." She's like, "No, you're not. You're 31." I was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
But, as you get older, you don't want to think about it. Like my beard used to be dark. It's got so much white in it now. It's not even funny. But remember, on the Tom, plus side, on
I'm
the plus
almost 50, side, so think of how I feel.
Yeah. On the plus side, though, if my beard does turn grey or white, at least every year at Christmas I can get a job as a Santa. Like we've got a mall in town. I'll just as soon as my beard turns grey, I'm going to bleach it and just go down like in November or October or something and say, "Do you need any Santa Clauses? Make some extra money," like, which is always useful around Christmas and a bit of extra cash. But
that bringing that up, it reminds me of a customer that I had when I worked back at Blockbuster. His name was Mr. Eichholz, The man actually looked like Santa Claus. And we always used to refer to him as Santa Claus. And he used to actually do that at Christmas time. He would play Santa, not just at a mall or anything like that, in his neighborhood. You know,
It's great. It brings people together at Christmas. Like I know I said it like it was a joke, but genuinely, I think it would be a lot of fun to be a mall Santa like one year, just to see what it's like. You know, I think it. You know, I'm good with kids. My niece and nephew are two of the best things in my life. You know, I love them to bits. So
yeah.
you know, although I think it would break the illusion for her if she came shopping, convinced her mum to go see Santa, and she walks in and sees her uncle sitting on the chair. She's like, "Wait, what's going on?" You're, yeah, might concern them a little bit. You know, it might actually.
Well, hopefully by
clue
the
them
time
in.
hopefully by the time your beard goes white enough that you could do this.
Hopefully, they will have stopped believing by that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no,
hopefully.
I think it would be fun. You know.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk with kids because a lot of them are into superheroes too. So all I have to say is, so you know, did you see Ant-Man 3? Or by that point, did you see Ant-Man 9? Yeah. The Superman Legacy Part 4 was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Anyway.
Also, I found this in the collection while I was doing the spring cleaning. And Lou, when he was on a couple of weeks ago, he kind of mentioned this. This is one of his books. This is Lou Koza
at the time. No, obviously we were talking just before recording, and you said that you had completely forgotten that he'd even given you this at some point.
Yeah.
So we are going to have Lou back on. The episode with Lou literally, like, it dropped yesterday, so we don't actually know if people have enjoyed it yet. We hope people did enjoy it because we want to have him back to do a commentary on Paranoia at some point. Yep. And we'll probably have him back on the podcast at some point anyway, just because he's a fun guy to talk to. But it'll be nice when we do. You can show him.
Yeah, and we still have to have him on because, you know, we kind of talked about, you know, we wanted to do an in-depth, you know, discussion about the death of George Reeves.
Yeah. And you know, part of that preparation will be watching Hollywoodland, the movie. Maybe you and I could actually do a commentary on that movie before we have.
I actually don't even own it.
Neither do I, but I mean, I'm sure I can get it secondhand on DVD somewhere, like for like next to nothing. Like it's quite an old movie at this point.
You know, the reason why I never picked it up is because, you know, and it's mostly because of Lou. He said to me, you know, there's no way that they can do justice to his life, and they're probably just going to sensationalize things.
Which is what they did. It's what they do with every biopic, though, isn't it? If you're going to make a movie about someone's life, it's always sensationalized. You know, it happens every single time. I think the only way to do it justice would have been to do it as a TV like mini series, as like a high budget series, and do like 6 episodes and cover it from start to finish.
Which, if they'd done it now, that would have been done on Netflix.
Yeah, or HBO at this point. Like, obviously, it'd probably be on HBO Max because it's Warner Brothers. But I mean, I've seen it once, a very long time ago, like back when it first came out. So it might be fun to get hold of a copy of that and actually do a commentary on that before we have Lou back to talk about the death of George Reeves. We'll see. If you let us know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in watching. You know, if even one person says they would actually quite like to see that, we'll do it.
Yep.
When it comes to requests on this channel, all it takes is one person to ask.
Yeah, one person to ask, and we're going to be like, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's even the very next thing we record, just because we're like, that's a really good idea. We should just get on that now. Yeah, we love our audience. We really do. I know that everyone says it, but yeah.
We love doing this. You know, we're going to continue doing this for as long as we still have the passion. You know, And I don't see the passion going out of either of us for a long, long time.
Absolutely. Like, I think I was about 7 or 8 when I first started seeing this show in reruns. Maybe a little older. I might have been 9 or 10. I've pretty much been talking about this show with whoever will listen ever since. I'm sure some people I've talked to the show extensively probably didn't particularly want to hear it. But, when you're passionate about something like this, you do tend to just go off. I mean, that's how this episode of the podcast we're doing right now, we just go off on tangents because we're passionate about so many of these things and it goes in so many different directions and we're passionate about every direction it's going. So it's very easy just to keep a conversation going because it can always go somewhere else. It just develops. I can't think of much else that we were really going to talk about in this episode of the podcast. We've covered the main things.
I was just thinking about something. DC, when they were doing, the tie-in comics recently for Wonder Woman and Batman, and now, of course, recently they just did the Superman 78 and Batman 89 minis.
And Smallville Season 11 was a great tie-in comic. I really liked Season 11 of Smallville.
Do you know that there's one Superman project that has never had a tie-in comic like that?
Well, Lois and Clark, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, they had some novels, but they never had a comic.
I'm talking about a classic show.
George Reeves, yeah. Even Kirk Allen, I'd love to see a Kirk Allen
there's such passion for Batman 66. And we know there is passion for George Reeves.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a reason he's still remembered. If it wasn't for George Reeves, people would not be making that mistake with Christopher Reeves' name.
Yeah.
Anywhere near as often, so many people call him Christopher Reeves. And we talked about it before. It annoys the piss out of me. It really pisses me off, especially when they're like a grown adult. I just think at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get into that now. But, if it wasn't for George Reeves, that mistake wouldn't keep happening. And the fact that it's still happening today just proves that George Reeves is still on people's minds when it comes to this character. People still know who he was. People are still aware that he was like the first TV Superman and that he's a legend because every Superman that Christopher Reeve talked about the fact that he watched the George Reeves show. I think every time we hear an interview with any actor that worked on whether it's Superboy or Lois and Clark or anything, they're always like, well, I grew up watching George Reeves.
Yeah.
I think Michael Mano said that to us. I think I can't remember if Douglas B. Myers did when we interviewed him, but it's amazing when you ask people like where their familiarity with the character came from. George Reeves is always the number one pick. Like he's always the one people mention.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, and it's like even a few years ago, like Alex Ross, brilliant artist, maybe my favorite artist. Actually, Gary Frank is my favorite artist. Alex Ross is number 2, but it's very, very fucking close. Like it's really close. But Alex Ross did those paintings where it was George Reeves flying with Adam West and Burt Ward. I think it was that they were in the Batmobile driving and George Reeves is like above them smiling and, all of that. So, and Alex Ross is the kind of artist that he does anything. He makes one painting and it's a talking point.
Yeah.
That the comic fans love Alex Ross.
Yeah. And that, that wasn't the only
he's done it a bunch of times. Yeah.
Yeah. There was that painting that he did. There was also,
wasn't there one with Spider-Man and it was him as well? Or was that Christopher Reeve in that one?
It was Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
But the other one that he did with George Reeves, there was actually 2 others that he did that I know of. He did one where the scene is it's a revolving door, and you've got George Reeves, he's got his shirt open and he's trying to get in there, and you got Christopher Reeve coming out doing the same thing, and they're like looking at each other.
Yes, I have seen that. Yeah, it's like the tie is like floating behind where he's like ripping it open. Yeah.
Yeah,
that is a great piece of art, and
yeah.
I
And
hope I remember when I'm editing this, because I'll just stick it on screen right now
yeah,
in case anyone hasn't seen it. It's glorious.
yeah. And then the other image that I know he did, it was a cover for a book that was all about TV superheroes.
I think I've seen that cover. Yeah,
And it's George Reeves, it's Adam West. I think it's either Jackson Bostwick or John Davy as Captain Marvel. I will not use the S word to refer to him. That's not his name.
I'm happy calling him the S word. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I
I
always thought Shazam was a cooler name anyway.
Yeah, but and this kind of points out, we call the character Tarzan. We don't call him yeah.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm assuming, I'm trying to remember, was Linda Carter included as
Yes.
well?
Linda Carter was also there. I'm not sure who else was on there. John Wesley Shipp might have been on there as well.
Yeah, that if an artist like Alex Ross is still to this day, like, he doesn't do it very regularly, but every now and then he'll do a piece of Superman art and George Reeves will be on it, and it just shows that even to this day, people know who George Reeves is, because even if you've never seen the show, if you're a comic fan, you know who Alex Ross is. Like, you've seen his artwork before. He's a legend.
Yeah.
And if he's painting a picture of George Reeves, even if you've never seen the show, you know who George Reeves is because Alex Ross painted him,
Yeah.
And artists like that are just part of why I love comics, because nothing is forgotten forever, and I'm sure one day, John Newton and Gerard Christopher will actually get the respect they deserve. But
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do, because the show deserves respect and the actors that played the role deserve to be remembered.
Absolutely. That's the whole thing. We love this show. Yes, it is one of the two major forgotten Superman related shows. Okay.
And let's face it, we're doing the other one with the Ruby Spears commentaries.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're both very good shows, released in the same year. How sad is that? 1988 was just like a cursed year for Superman. Like, okay, two great projects came out of it, but they're also the forgotten projects, which I think is so sad, because they are genuinely great. Yeah, I'm loving the Ruby Spears show. Like, we're doing our commentaries on that. By the time this goes up, I'm sure episodes 3 and 4 commentaries are probably already out.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying watching alongside us, because it's the first time I've seen most of these. I'd seen like 2 or 3 episodes, but they were like random episodes, so I have no idea where they're going to fall. But yeah, just having a great time, and that's why we do what we do. We may not have the biggest audience in the world, but we still love doing what we do, because we would be talking about this stuff even if we weren't recording.
Right.
It would be via probably text on a Facebook message or something like that. But, it wouldn't be quite as fun. But, yeah. That's why we love it when the audience interacts with us and tells us suggestions, like things they want to see, like commentary suggestions. Like, if anybody watching this right now would like to request an episode for us to do a commentary on, let us know. We will definitely do it. It'll probably be the next thing we record, in fact. Because we love doing them. And
it's just like the request to do Bringing Down the House we did.
Bringing Down the House, Black Flamingo, I think Black Flamingo wasn't requested, but we mistook it for something. It was Troubled Waters that was requested, but for some reason we confused it with Black Flamingo, because we just knew it was one of the more divisive episodes, shall we say. That's being kind. More divisive. And it's just fun, We're not like a rewatch podcast where we start with episode 1 and just keep going in order. We jump around all over the place, just because that way we just watch whatever we're passionate about at the time. Last week's episode of the podcast, Chris, you obviously showed off your action figures, your custom collectibles that you make.
Yep.
And you showed the Brimstone figure. So I think probably Brimstone will be the next commentary we do. I've not seen it in a very long time, and for some reason my memory of it is so hazy. I thought it was a season 3 episode. I'd completely forgotten that there's like, you know, I think, and I can't remember what Andy does in it particularly, but I'd forgotten that he was even there.
He was there at the beginning of the episode, and then the rest of the episode is Clark, Superboy, Lana, and Brimstone. And that's it.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen it. My memory is so hazy. I think that would be fun to do a commentary on. So that would probably be what we do next week. But
and not for nothing, Philip Michael Thomas was not that bad in the episode.
No, I mean, there's a reason you made an action figure of him. I don't remember if it's a good episode or not, to be honest, but I remember Brimstone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't remember him enough that I recognized him instantly off your action figure because
he does make an appearance in the TV tie-in comic, but we haven't gotten to that issue yet.
Maybe we should hold off on doing the commentary on Brimstone, and we'll do that commentary and the comic, and we'll release them both the same week as a little treat for people.
Yeah, but the problem is we're only at issue 6, and that isn't until issue 14.
Okay, maybe not. We'll do the commentary. We'll do the commentary next week, and by the time we get to issue 14, it would have been so long that maybe we'll just do another commentary on it. We'll just we'll do a discussion of the episode. We'll watch it off camera and then just get together and do like a half-hour discussion on the episode before.
Or we could do that idea we had before, which is we do a reaction video to our commentary.
Yeah, this is a weird idea. We were just discussing before we started the podcast, and this episode of the podcast is okay. We've promoted the magazine and you've shown the posters and stuff, so it is like a regular episode of our show. But I guess mostly this is sort of a look behind the scenes at some of the stuff we discuss, and we were discussing some of the crazy ideas that we couldn't possibly do. And one of the ideas I threw out was like, maybe we should do a reaction to our own videos. Like we could just go back and we could do a reaction to our very first commentary we did together and just roast ourselves. Just like, yeah, that joke didn't land. Like that wasn't funny. What was I thinking? And we'll just roast ourselves on an episode of the podcast.
That would be
just
fun.
Just reacting to one of our oldest videos and just see how it goes. Yeah, we may do that at some point, but it's fun just coming up with some of the crazier ideas that we probably shouldn't do. But that's one that actually is as crazy as it is. It might actually be kind of fun.
Because you and I, we have grown a lot since that first episode.
Yeah. You were super nervous in the first one. We've talked about before. Like before the show, I remember you were really nervous, and I was just like, "It'll be fine, man. Like it'll be fine. We'll have fun."
Well, there was a couple of reasons why I was nervous. One, this is the first time I've ever done, a podcast.
Yeah. And I said to you, it's understandable. First time you're going to be a little nervous, but I think I said to you, like, just don't worry because I'll be there, like, to sort of back you up and I'll be there to make you look good, basically.
Yeah. And the other part was, that was the first time that you and I had actually, met.
Yeah, we chatted on Facebook chat in the couple of weeks leading up to it, I think. Yeah. And in the comments, but it was like the first time we'd actually spoken vocally.
Yeah.
And we didn't quite know if it was going to work. Sometimes people get along really well off camera, and then as soon as they hit record, suddenly all the chemistry just disappears.
Yeah.
And I'm not the best at recognizing when people have chemistry, but I recognize that I was having fun. And usually if we're having fun recording, the audience is having fun watching.
Yeah.
Not always, occasionally we make mistakes, as anyone does, but the majority of the time, if we're having fun, usually the audience is. And yeah. This is a really weird episode of the podcast. I realize that it's a lot of just talking about some of the ideas we have for the future, but hopefully because we've thrown out some of these ideas, if you in the comments want to actually throw out an idea that you have, maybe we'll like it and we'll actually do it for you. You know, if you've got an idea for a topic for an episode of the podcast, we'll happily do that. Or if there's a commentary you want covered, or maybe there's, you know, even other stuff that's Superman related, like we're happy to do commentaries on stuff like Lois and Clark or the George Reeves show, obviously.
Depends on the episode of Lois and Clark.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it might be fun to do a commentary on a bad one just to make fun of it.
Yeah, like
but,
the infamous Vat Man.
Yeah, I don't even I think I blocked half of that out of my.
Yeah, that was their way of doing Bizarro.
Yeah, it's the one where Dean Cain is acting like a child. All I remember is him getting a piggyback ride from Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
You know, not a great episode.
Yeah, you know, and it just proves one thing. What you were saying when we talked to Lou about, you know, the first seasons of most sci-fi shows, they really suck. You know,
although Lois and Clark, in my opinion, is an exception. I prefer season 1 over any of the other seasons of Lois and Clark. I think Lois and Clark is the opposite of Superboy, where instead of getting better over time, it just got worse. Although season 2 is very good, I just think it makes some mistakes that I just prefer the way, especially with season 1, like with the Lex and Superman ongoing battle, basically battle of wits. It's like they're never really fighting; they're just sort of arguing a lot, and he's trying to catch Lex out, and Lex is too smart for him, and all of this. And that was a really interesting way to handle the Lex and Superman thing, and that's my favorite part of Lois and Clark, is that story. Not as keen on when Lex falls in love with Lois and all of that stuff. I think it's fine. It's been, you know,
and then of course
it's been done in the comics as well, so I can't complain.
Yeah, and then of course the frog eating clones.
Yeah, that was season 3 or 4, wasn't it? It was right towards the end.
And then, you know, just prolonging
I won't be watching
between the two of them was just getting annoying.
Yeah. Season 4 is by far the worst season, which is a shame because I really like the season 3 finale and the season 4 opener with that whole New Krypton story. I thought that was great. That was really good stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it could have been better, but it was still really good.
I mean, the fact that he was wearing a variation on the Kryptonian life suit in the episodes.
Yeah, with the blue emblem on it instead of silver. Like,
it
looked awesome. It looked great. But yeah, all in all, I think season 1, in my opinion, of Lois and Clark is my favorite season. I think it's the strongest in terms of writing. But season 2 is a lot more comic booky. So that one, you know, I have a lot of love for that one too. Season 3 is when it started going downhill, although not super quickly. Season 4 is when it just went off the rails so fucking quick in season 4. I don't know what happened.
Mean, bringing Drew Carey and the actress who played Mimi in from the Drew Carey show for a ghost episode.
Yeah, it's just like, wait, so the Drew Carey show is a popular show. So should we just put them in our show? Does it make sense? Not really.
No.
We'll do it anyway.
And
it's an easy way to get ratings, you know. It's people who watch the Drew Carey show probably tuned in for that episode and they got a bump in the ratings for that 1 week. I don't think it's worth it. I think it ruins the integrity of the show a little bit. It's like if that cameo from Terry Savalas as Kojak was going to be in Superman the movie, where he's like standing at a window. It's like, New York loves you, baby, to Superman as he flies past. And it's like,
the scene was originally going to be Superman's flying over a crowd looking for Lex Luthor.
And he
bald man grabs him, and it's Telly Savalas, and he says, "Hey, who loves you, baby?"
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Richard Donner saw that in the script and was like, "Well, that's fucking getting cut. We're not filming that. That's stupid." And you know, it's the same sort of thing with Drew Carey and Mimi in the thing in Lois and Clark. So, you know, like we say, we may do commentaries on some episodes of Lois and Clark. Probably just our favorite ones, though. Maybe not necessarily some of the bad ones, unless unless there's one episode that is so bad that we think it will be fun to do a commentary on, just to make fun of it.
And I got to say one thing about Lois and Clark. They did try to bring in some, quote unquote classic Superman villains. Okay, the first live action version of the character of Baron Sunday. He's a voodoo shaman, Houngan, I think they call it. And they did that. He's the first ever live action version of Baron Sunday on Lois.
I can't remember if it's been done since as well. So he's probably
Nope.
the only ever.
Yeah.
Some people, like, it annoyed me. I saw a couple of months ago, someone was chatting and they said it was something about the worst cameos, worst guest stars on Lois and Clark, and someone mentioned Howie Mandel as Mixes Pitlick, and someone said, "Yeah, but I mean, he was the first in live action," and I immediately jumped in the comments. Actually, no, he fucking wasn't. No, he absolutely fucking wasn't. And it's that episode has some cool ideas. I think that's a cool idea for a Mixie story. I thought it's fine, but Howie Mandel was just bad in it.
I mean, you know who could have done it really well and later on did get to play Mixie? Gilbert.
Yeah.
Gilbert could have done that character, and Howie Mandel is a great comedian. He's also a great actor. But he was missed.
I don't know about a great actor.
Well,
necessarily.
I mostly go from his comedic acting, like the movie Walk Like a Man that he did, or his animated stuff where he was doing Bobby's World. He is a good actor, okay, but he was just miscast as Mixie for that.
Yeah.
What you need is an overpowering presence for Mixie, and Michael J. Pollard did it great, and as we talked before,
I think it was before we hit record, but Michael J. Pollard, he played Mixie like a bored child.
Yeah.
And that really does sum up who Mixie is. It's a very different take to what Gilbert Gottfried did in Superman the Animated Series, but they're both very clearly Mixie.
Yeah.
And I think Mandel's the only one that never really hit that. I mean, the first Mixie on Supergirl wasn't great, but I thought when they replaced him with Thomas Lennon later on, I thought he was great. We're not going to include Mixie from Smallville because that was Mixie in name only. He didn't have the same power set. He didn't have the same backstory. He was just a guy who had a meteor freak power, as they called him. I think that's, So I'm not going to count him as one of the Mixies. I thought he was fine as the character he was playing. He just shouldn't have been named Mixie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just make him another meteor freak. He didn't need to be Mixes Pitlick. You could do better,
Yeah.
In fact, I always thought it was a shame that they never tried again, around season 9 or 10. If they said oh, maybe we'll get another Mixes Pitlick and we just won't mention the other one. The same way they did with the Wonder Twins. There was, I think it was season 1, there was an episode where 2 Meteor Freak twins had some sort of weird power, and it is like they were killing people or something, and they were like a villainous. And there's a joke in the episode where they refer to them as the Wonder Twins, and it was kind of originally intended to be their version of the Wonder Twins, just as a little nod.
Yeah.
But then later on, they decided actually we want to bring in the actual Wonder Twins, and suddenly they
recast. That was season 9. They brought them in.
Yeah, so it's just just because you've done something before doesn't mean you can't try again necessarily. I think comic book fans especially are a lot more forgiving of stuff like that because this is how comics have been written pretty much since the beginning. It's like Grant Morrison, he was going to do, was it Superman, Ultimate Superman or Superman 2000 or something. It was right around the time when Ultimate Spider-Man came out originally. And they were talking about doing an Ultimate universe for DC as well. And Grant Morrison was going to do that Superman suit. It was the first time you'd seen a suit without the underwear, and he had the Kingdom Come emblem. And it was fine as a design, but it didn't go anywhere because it didn't really work.
Yeah.
And then obviously a few years later, the New 52 comes around and they're like, Grant Morrison, do you want to write Superman? He's like, okay. So I'm sure he got some of his ideas out.
Yeah, I mean, all the New 52 was DC's idea of the Ultimate Universe, but instead of
instead of being a side thing, it was a replacement, which
and it was a bad replacement,
especially when it comes to Superman. Like the only Superman comics I like from the New 52 era, obviously the Lois and Clark miniseries that brought back the other Superman.
right?
But there's a story by Scott Snyder called Superman Unchained that's very, very good. I think that's a Jim Lee penned one. I think he did the
7
artwork for it.
issues.
Yeah. Great story. Really, really fun. Other than that, it's just the Adventures of Superman comics that were the anthology series are just brilliant. Yeah, I've got all 3 volumes of that as a trade paperback. It is great because it's not having to fit itself in the New 52 continuity. It can just tell classic Superman stories, and it's great. Other than that, like Smallville season 11 was around that time, and I really liked that, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And Superman Earth 1. You know, I know you're not as big a fan of Superman Earth 1 as I am, but I love Superman Earth 1. I thought Batman Earth 1 was great too.
Superman Earth 1 was J. Michael Straczynski, and I find Straczynski's writing to be somewhat hit or miss.
Hit or miss.
Mostly miss. I'll give you an example.
I disagree. He wrote my favorite run of Spider-Man comics in the early to mid 2000s.
I hated his run on Spider-Man.
I loved it. Making Peter Parker a teacher and all that. It just felt like
my problem was that Marvel Comics, the way they'd always done the superheroes, it was 60, 65% superhero stuff in the issue and 35%, personal drama.
And he switched it.
He made it 90% personal drama. And, oh, yeah, that's right. I got to make sure. I forgot that he's a superhero, too. Let's put him in the comic, in the costume in one panel.
I think we should just agree to disagree. I think you're exaggerating a tiny bit. Like it is my favorite run of Spider-Man.
Yeah, and what made it worse is he was the writer behind the infamous Gwen Stacy children's storyline.
Yeah, I think even he has said though in years since that was a mistake. Like even he has said, he shouldn't have done that. Which is good. I like when people admit, something didn't work. I think a lot of great writers.
I think the way that story should have worked, or could have worked, is if instead of her willingly, going to bed with Norman, that he
it should have been something villainous, an assault.
Yeah, he assaulted her, and
or like a roofie, or something. Just even if it was like an artificially.
You can't say with the R word, unfortunately.
Yeah. Maybe he had her artificially inseminated or something. It's you could. There are ways to do it. I didn't like that part of it as much.
Yeah,
but I overall I really like. I like when comics get a lot more character driven and less fighty all the time, because I think there's a time and a place where the fighty stuff is great, but sometimes I like slower paced stories. Like I know that it's a very divisive Superman story, but Superman, what was it called? The one where he's just walking across the country. Was that Straczynski as well?
Yeah, he started that, and then Chris Robson took it over.
Yeah. Grounded, I thought it started really well. I thought it ended really badly. I thought as soon as it was taken over, it sort of didn't work.
Yeah, the reason why it kind of fell off the rails at the end is because Straczynski had to step away to do another project for DC. And Robson was just working on Straczynski's notes as to how it was supposed to go. So of course
you can have the notes, but without the details. It's hard to know exactly how Straczynski would have worked it, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I like comics that aren't afraid to, dial back the action a little bit and tell us a more character-driven story.
My experience with Straczynski, other than the Superman stuff, and this is where I think he does fall off the rails a little bit as far as a writer. He doesn't get the characters right. He did an issue of DC's Star Trek in the 90s.
Right.
It's an episode called World Singer. It's a good issue. My problem is with the characterizations. Okay. Bones was not known for speaking with an over-exaggerated Southern drawl.
No, you knew he was Southern, but it wasn't ever exaggerated. He kept it subtle.
The way he wrote Bones,
like the most you could tell that he was Southern is when he like makes references to like the Kentucky Derby or something.
Yeah.
That's how you clue in,
Yeah, the way he wrote Bones, and this is the way he has Bones speaking, and all, every single piece of dialogue he has, he's
turned him into a cowboy.
Yeah, he's turning him into a Southern caricature, which Bones was not. Bones was a very intelligent, very thoughtful.
He's a doctor,
Yeah,
I mean,
come on,
it doesn't matter. You can have a Southern drawl and still be a super intelligent guy. I know, but it's when you're writing it as a comic, when you write out accents like that in comics, it's so easy for it to read as the character being low intelligence. Just because it so rarely happens that when it does happen, it's usually to show the audience that this person's slightly off compared to the rest. That's usually the only time it's done. It's like Solomon. It's like a character like Solomon Grundy. Like you write that character the way he speaks.
Yeah.
You write him like a slow, almost like a very dim-witted zombie-like character. You don't write him the same way you would write Ra's al Ghul, for example. They're very different characters. But when you write Bones that way, I can completely see why you would not like it, because
I mean, if he had done it once, in the entire issue, I would have been fine. Because every now and then in the show, Bones always did. He did pop out with the drawl.
Yeah,
but it was so rare that.
Yeah, it more so happened in the J.J. Abrams Trek movies. I think Carl Urban was fantastic as Bones, but there are a few moments where the Southern drawl gets a little bit past where it perhaps needed to be. Mostly,
but then again, that's because of J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, and it's
not a great director.
I still think the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie is a damn good movie, because that's the movie that got me into Star Trek.
Yeah,
I'd seen episodes as a kid, but then I saw that first Abrams movie and fell in love with it, and that's when I sought out everything. That's immediately I watched all of the original series, followed by TNG, followed by DS9, followed by Voyager, and then Enterprise. And that movie sparked it off, and over the next year and a half, I'd watched everything. And granted, by that point, the movie had dropped in my ranking among other Star Trek things. I preferred all the other stuff.
Yeah,
but I still credit that movie for getting me into the franchise at all, because I didn't give a shit before that. I was more. I think I was watching Stargate at the time, SG-1, but even then, I think it was even still on the air at the time. I don't think it was even on Sci-Fi yet. It was still a Showtime original, but I forget what.
I think once it moved to Sci-Fi, they had to tone down a lot of the stuff that they had when they were on Showtime.
Well, they just had less budget. Nudity. They had less of a budget. There was, the only nudity that was in Stargate SG-1 was in the first episode, and even the producers of the show didn't want to do it. Like, that was something that Showtime stipulated you have to do. You've got the ability to swear and to have nudity. You must do it.
Yeah,
and it's just. No, they should have, even Brad Wright and that's why when they released Stargate SG-1, Children of the Gods, the final cut, years and years later on DVD, they removed the nudity entirely, and it's much better for it. But
yeah. Plus, they added more into Teal'c into the
a
director's
little bit
edition.
more Teal'c. I believe as well. There's an early version of one of the Death Gliders is in the original pilot, and it's not a design that carried over to any other episode. So when they did the final cut, they took that out and put in the updated model. So suddenly it actually has the correct, the correct Death Glider model,
Yeah,
which I
because
think is great.
Yeah, the original version of the first episode, Teal'c seems to, switch sides too quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's very subtle. You just need to watch what he's looking at, and yeah, it's very subtle. And I think a lot of it comes from knowing what's going to happen. The fact that it's a second viewing type thing. And I think you're right. I think on the first viewing, that would be difficult. It would seem a bit more of a switch out of nowhere. But I think in the episode it works.
Yeah.
For me, anyway. At least on second viewing. But yeah.
Did we ever come up with a role for Christopher Judge for season 5?
Yes, he is John Jones, the Martian Manhunter.
Oh, right. I forgot.
Indeed. And yeah, he will be saying indeed at least once in the first episode he's in.
Yeah.
Because I've got to have him say indeed. I love Christopher Judge. I think he's just awesome. I wish he would be in more projects. Although he's won a shit ton of awards lately for that God of War video game.
Yeah.
Apparently he's, he won a ton of awards for that. And I haven't played that game, but it's supposed to be great. So
he was also a voice actor on 2 different animated series from the early 2000s. X-Men Evolution, he was the voice of Magneto.
I didn't know that. That's a good choice for Magneto. An interesting choice.
And if you ever watched, and I know you probably didn't, but the 2001, 2002 version of the He-Man Masters Universe cartoon.
No, I never saw it.
He's the voice of the Cosmic Enforcer, Zodak.
That's cool.
And basically, he's just playing it as, Teal'c, in He-Man. But he does such a great job.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching an interview with him where he was talking about God of War and how he almost turned it down when he was offered the chance to even audition. He almost turned it down. And he was just like, I'm really not comfortable doing voice acting. And he says in this interview, I've got 2 voices. I've got this and a slightly deeper version of this. And the only reason he agreed to audition and all that is because they said like there's going to be a lot of motion capture. You're going to be on like a simulated set in a studio. You're not going to be just standing in front of a microphone saying all your lines. You're going to be acting this out, and that's how he convinced him to do it. So I'm surprised. Maybe it was those animated things you just mentioned that are the reason why he said he's uncomfortable. Maybe he just didn't enjoy that experience very much. But it's interesting.
You do know that there's a little bit of an Easter egg in the first God of War film, animated game.
I've never played any of them, to be honest.
In the thing, Kratos actually kills Medusa.
Right.
Okay. They got Harry Hamlin to play Perseus again.
That's cool. I like when they bring people back to play roles that they've not done for a while. That's always a really fun thing to see.
And he actually has to fight Kratos because Kratos killed Medusa. He never got to the island to get the head, and of course Andromeda got killed. So he's pissed.
It's clearly a fun series. I am meaning, I've been meaning to play it for a while, but then my PS4 broke, so suddenly no choice. But no, I've always.
Well, I've never played it.
Teal'c is awesome.
Just somebody in one of the other groups that I'm in on Facebook.
They just mentioned it,
and then I found the video on YouTube and I watched it. And it's like, oh God, he sounds exactly the same as he did back in 1982.
Oh, yeah. No, that would be fun to. I'm sure that would have been fun to see. Maybe at some point I'll get to play it. But Christopher Judge is just awesome. And I remember being very disappointed at one point because I remember it was announced that he was in The Dark Knight Rises. And it was on all the geek sites. Christopher Judge from SG1 is going to be in Dark Knight Rises, and he's like in it for like a second. He's like a blink and you miss it police officer. I don't even know if he has any dialogue. If he does, he has like one line. And it's like, I remember watching and thinking, oh, there's Christopher Judge. Oh, and there he goes. Bye, Christopher Judge. I just thought it was such a shame. I'm such a fan of that guy. And yeah, you don't. If there's an actor like that has a lot of geek cred, you don't hire him for a tiny role like that just as a cameo.
He would have probably made a better version of Bane than Tom Hardy did.
He would have been fucking great as Bane. Yeah, he's bigger than Tom Hardy, like in terms of even to this day. Like he's not been on Stargate for a long time, but he's still kind of built like Tilk. You know, he's still a huge guy. Christopher Judge would have been great as Bane. You're right. But,
you know, there's two actors that you know, and this kind of goes into Teal'c. Somebody that I met once, they said that they met him and the actor who played Tyr on Andromeda, Keith Hamilton Cobb. Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. It was Keith Hamilton.
Yeah, it's the one. It's Kevin Sorbo and
and they made this joke about meeting both of them, and you know they're very tall guys, and you know the person I was talking to says, "Can you sit down?" And both of them look at her and say, "I am sitting down." Another one like that is Tony Todd. He's imposing.
Love Tony Todd. He is absolutely fantastic. He's just a phenomenal actor. You know, in Deep Space Nine, absolutely fantastic. He's played a bunch of roles in Star Trek, in fact. Yeah. Deep Space Nine in particular, I believe he was playing like an older Jake Sisko. Was that right?
Older Jake Sisko, and he also
in The Visitor. Yeah.
Yeah, and he also came back as
he was a Klingon or something.
He was Worf's brother, Kern.
Right.
And then and this is right after the whole, you know, ending of the Kinnemer Accords. And Kern comes to Deep Space Nine and says, "They took everything from us because of you. I have no honor because of you."
Some of the better Worf storylines when the family stuff came up. It didn't happen nearly often enough, in my opinion. And at a certain point, it seemed that, especially on TNG, at some point, it's like they decided, right, okay, Worf and his family drama seems quite popular, so maybe we should give him a son. And it's just that whole story with Alexander and all that. Like you think in DS9, they bring back the son, and you think by the end of the episode, oh, Worf's going to be a better father now. He's come to terms with what he was, you know, all this stuff. It's going to be great. Alexander came back for one episode as a cameo in a wedding. I think it was the wedding between Worf and
and it wasn't even the same actor who was playing him.
Yeah, and then never seen again, never mentioned again. Just what a shame. Like DS9 did some great stuff, but I think that episode you may as well have just never mentioned Alexander at all because there was really no point. But anyway, we've been going for an hour and 15, and considering we didn't have much to talk about in this episode, I hope people are actually enjoying this episode. I'll probably end up cutting a little bit out of this one because there are a few moments here and there where I kind of waffled. But I hope you did.
We like it when you waffle. We prefer it when you pancake, though.
I do try to. I try to keep it tight as I can, but I do know that sometimes people actually enjoy hearing the conversation unedited.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to tune in again next week where we'll probably be doing a commentary on Brimstone, I imagine, since we're not going to wait until we get to it in the comics. So, look for that next week. Thank you all so much. Goodbye.